your mind.
It's Friday, you bastard.
You know, girls, it's great to live in a democracy today.
Really?
Where freedom is everywhere.
Really?
But girls, we often take this freedom for granted. Freedom of speech.
What?
Freedom of thought.
What?
And freedom of action.
I'm just wondering.
But you know, gals, just because a bunch of men signed that Declaration of Independence in 1776 doesn't mean that freedom was for men alone.
No.
Oh, no, you take Tom Jefferson.
A founding father.
Ben Franklin.
You know.
John Hancock.
Adorable.
He's a hell of a guy for you right there.
Adorable.
All these men had wives.
Yes.
They probably had a few broads on the side, too.
Callista.
These women wanted freedom just as much as their men did.
Really?
But, gals, I wonder, do we? I think it's time that we women thought about it a bit.
I'm wondering.
Hell, I think it's time we did something about it.
Hell.
So come on, fellow females of the 20th century.
21st.
Declare that you're an American.
Oh, God.
Proclaim your freedom.
Oh, God.
And attention.
Oh, God.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance.
And bounce your boobies. Get into the swing.
All right.
Bounce your boobies. The swing is everything.
Really?
It makes no difference if they're big or small.
Does too.
As long as you give him your all. Bounce your boobies. Come on, honey. Bounce them up and down. Bounce your boobies. Come on, bounce your boobies. Come on. Loosen the bra that binds you. Take it off if you feel like it.
You're good, buddy.
Come on,
You're
bounce
good.
your boobies. There we go. Doesn't that feel good?
No.
Bounce your boobies. You know, girls,
What?
men aren't the only people in the world today who have something to give.
Are you sure?
But it sure looks like it sometimes. Just look around you. Men stick out all over the place. Big fat cigars.
Yeah.
Big fat stomachs.
Yeah.
And just where they should stick out,
Maybe I need to ask
where
forgiveness.
is it? Yes, girls, we know what we've got and we know what they're worth. So come on, gals. Let's get into the swing of things. Give your boobies some freedom. All together now. Bounce your boobies. Let them rock and roll. Nudge your knockers. Keep them hot and sold.
I don't know.
Just admit it, gals. It sure feels great
Let him.
to feel them swinging. Ooh, titillate.
Ew.
Bounce your boobies. Come on, bounce them up and down. Bounce your boobies. There, look at that gal. She's going there. Bounce your boobies. Oh, that must feel good. Bounce.
Ow.
Bounce.
Ow.
Bounce.
Ow. Ow.
Bounce. Your boobies now.
Everybody! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! 12 segments to beer. All right, here's the schedule. Just so you know, don't wig out, don't freak out. I'm going on vacation next week for a week, long planned. Can't change it. Kids are involved. Children. Got to do it for the children. So Nicole will be here. This will be her last fill-in for us. So I'm glad that it will be her. She's done a fabulous job for us for 4.5 years. So Nicole will be in next week, and then we'll be back. We will be back, and we'll do the final 2 weeks together. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's the schedule. So don't freak out. All right, so Clive and Bundy, he's back. He's everywhere now. He's going to be on Dancing with the Stars, and he's going to be a new judge on The Voice or something. I mean, I just can't even. Where's the love for Sean Hannity? He's the guy that gave you your first break in show business. What are you doing on the CNN, Clive? I mean, not only is he a racist, not only is he a violator of federal law, not only is he an insurrectionist, not only is he a terrorist, but now he's also just loyal to Sean Hannity. Wow. Unbelievable. So maybe CNN is using him to replace the plane. He's already been on twice. He was on last night. He was on this morning. I hope that they're using Clive to replace the plane. Because, straightening out Clive then would be probably as easy as finding that damn plane. which, by the way, did you see they got very excited yesterday? They found a piece of metal with rivets in it that had washed up on the beaches of Australia, and this was it. This was going to be it. And then they said, the more we look at it, the less excited we are, and that's how I feel about CNN. It's exactly how I feel about it. It's crazy. So now, instead of following the search for the plane, CNN is breathlessly following the search for some kind of rational statement from Cliven Bundy, and they're not finding that either. He gave a press conference last night that was so bizarre, and so and it's like somebody wrote these talking points for him. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, Cliven Bundy doesn't know many words, but why does he keep using the same ones? He keeps using the same damn words over and over. It's like, it's just a coincidence, right? That's all. It's a coincidence that he uses the same words that I think, the Republican elected officials, the Rand Pauls, the Ted Cruzes, the Greg Abbotts, the Dean Hellers, the elected people, the people from, the area who ran the sheriff, Mr. Mack, they're just pissed off at Cliven Bundy because Cliven Bundy forgot to use the code words. So I guess they had to write them down for him. And he just, I don't know, he keeps going off their script and just wigging them all out. So now, he instead of saving the love for Sean Hannity, he gave a new word today to, what's his name? I always want to call him Mario Cuomo or Andrew Cuomo. Chris Cuomo. He gave an interview to Chris Cuomo. They're all Cuomos. Or Bundys. There's a Ted Bundy, there's an Al Bundy. In fact, if you took Ted Cruz and you mixed him with Cliven, you'd get Ted Bundy, is what you would get. Isn't that weird? Wow, coincidence? Yes. These elected people are just wigged out that he's getting off script. And today he was talking to Chris Cuomo, and he gave us a new word. He gave us black boy. Black boy. Thank you. Thank you, Cliven, for a new word. Black boy. Oh, my God. And, it's all just a coincidence, the whole thing, I mean, the jokes, the emails, the chain emails, the revolting comments, the Newt Gingrich comments about work ethic, the Rick Santorum about giving money to the black people. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. It was blah people, right? He meant to say the blah people, because that makes much more sense. Yeah, I mean, all these things that they said, the birthers, the Alan Wests of the world, the Paul Ryans with the inner city, the Newt Gingrich with they don't have, an adult in the house for a work ethic. It's just a coincidence. Mitt Romney with the 47%, and they're all takers. And, the National Review comparing Cliven Bundy to Rosa Parks and Gandhi. And Gandhi, this was their, I mean, it's just, Richard Mack and the Oath Keepers and Hannity with his love for George Zimmerman and his love for Michael Dunn and all these reports on, how they're not racist. I'm the racist for bringing up their racism, for pointing out their racism, for shining the light on their racism. Somehow shining the light on racism has become a grievance industry based in racism. It's just, wow, it takes your breath away. But, you see the T-shirts, you see the posters, you see the witch doctor with the bone in his nose, at the Tea Party rallies, you see monkeys, you hear people comparing Obama to monkeys, you have the birther movement, but it's just a coincidence that the guy that they embrace turns out to be and Sean Hannity, I must tell you, he's appalled. He's appalled. It's despicable. It's, lamentable, whatever. I mean, he must be serious because he pulled out, like, every multiple syllabic word that he could, pull out of his, limited multiple syllabic word bag. So he must be very serious. But, I mean, this interview this morning was just so insane.
I understand that the government was very aggressive with you, and many people think it was wrong. I understand that people are upset with the government. The question is, what is our reaction? Your reaction was to say that you wonder if Negroes weren't better off as slaves. Now, are you a racist?
No, I'm not a racist, but I did wonder that. But let me tell you something. I thought about this morning quite a bit.
Please.
And I thought about what Reverend Martin Luther King said. And I thought about Rosa Parks and taking her...
Rosa Parks.
her seat at the front of the bus. Now, Reverend Martin Luther King
and Rosa Parks
did not want her to take her seat in the front of the bus. That wasn't what he was talking about. He did not say, go to the front of the bus and that's where your seat was. What Reverend King wanted was that she could sit anywhere in the bus, and that nobody would say anything about it, and that you and I could sit by her anywhere in the bus. That's what he wanted, and that's what I want. I want her to be able to sit anywhere in the bus, and I want to be able to sit by her anywhere in that bus, and that's what he wanted. He didn't want this prejudice thing like the media tried to put on me yesterday, and I'm not going to put up with that because that's not what he wanted, and that's not what I want. I want to sit by her anywhere in that bus, and I want anybody to be able to do the same thing. That's what he was after, is not a prejudice thing, but make us equal.
Right. Martin Luther King. Why do they always dredge up Martin Luther King as if they would have marched with him? As if they would have, if they only knew. I mean, this guy's 67 years old. He could have, He just didn't know. He was isolated out in the desert, stealing land for grazing. He didn't know. I hate to tell you this, but Martin Luther King, when he said, I have a dream, he didn't say, I have a dream that someday a crazy old racist rancher can say whatever he damn well pleases and no Negroes are going to mind a bit, and I don't think he ever said that Rosa Parks shouldn't pay to ride the bus, which is Cliven Bundy's position. Cliven Bundy is riding the bus for free, you see. But every time they get in a jam, well, I want to reinterpret what Dr. Martin Luther King, I want to bask in the glow of a guy who is nearly a saint, really. Dr. Martin Luther King, I mean, do you ever wonder, what if God was one of us? Just a stranger on the bus? What if God was one of us? We would kill him, because that's what we've done. We need to get over this prejudice. Yes, start with the Negroes, Cliven. Oh, my God. What? And it just gets really, really weird from it. That was the good part. Because you could see he's like, somebody's talking to him going, hey, we use code words around here. 19 after.
I was in Indianola a few months ago, and I was talking to someone who works at the Department of Public Welfare here, and she told me that the state of Iowa is going to get fined if they don't sign up more people onto the Medicaid program. They're just pushing harder and harder to get more and more of you dependent upon them so they can get your vote. That's what the bottom line is. I don't want to make people's lives better by giving them somebody else's money. I want to give them the opportunity to go out and earn the money.
The Tea Party is tired of blacks, Negroes, Muslims calling us racist.
I have obviously failed to galvanize and prod, if not shame, enough Americans to be ever vigilant not to let a Chicago communist-raised, communist-educated, communist-nurtured, subhuman mongrel like the Acorn community organizer gangster Barack Hussein Obama to weasel his way into the top office of authority in the United States of America. I am heartbroken, but I am not giving up. I think America will be America again when Barack Obama, Eric Holder, Hillary Clinton, Dick Durbin, Michael Bloomberg, and all of the liberal Democrats are in jail, facing the just due punishment that their treasonous acts are clearly apparent. So those are, a lot of people would call that inflammatory speech. Well, I would call it inflammatory speech when it's your job to protect Americans, and then you look into the television camera and say, what difference does it make that I face?
To Allah, this president is not a president of we the people. He's the president of his people. I call upon all of you to wage a second American nonviolent revolution, to use civil disobedience, and to demand that this president leave town, to get out. to put the Quran down, to get up off his knees, come here and demand the resignation of Obama and other leaders who have subverted the interests of our country.
No, it's just a coincidence that they all say this. It's just a coincidence that they say that he is a black Muslim, that he is other, that he's not legitimate, and then as soon as you call them out and you say, we've never heard anybody call this, our president, the president of the United States, somebody who is ineligible to be president because of, he was born in Hawaii, but, because of his skin color or because of his lineage or because he's not, they say, oh, well, there's nothing racist about it. And then when you call out Rick Santorum and he was talking about welfare, and he was talking about all these, code words that they have, food stamp president, no work ethic, inner city, sitting on the porch, doing nothing, nigras, we're not. And then they just downshift after they say all these racist, horrendously hurtful things about the president and about other people. But we're not racist. Denial is a tough one. It's a very, very tough one. People who are in denial never, ever, ever, ever have the ability to cure what ails them. There is not a chance in the world that these people who say these things and then deny that they're racist, they're obviously in denial, have a shot, a chance, a prayer at overcoming this disease of racism. And it is a disease. It's something that screws up their thinking, screws up their decision making. It's really kind of frontal lobe dysfunction that, happens when you drink too much, or happens when you smoke too much, or happens when you shoot too much, or snort too much, or, whatever. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a freaking disease, and they're addicted to it to the point where, it's like, being caught as a teenager with cigarettes burning in your ashtray in your room, and your mother walks in, and she says, "Why are you smoking?" And you say, "I'm not smoking." You're never going to be able to quit smoking if you're going to lie about the fact that you are smoking when she catches you red-handed. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such a disease, and it's really rampant in this Republican Party especially. And the idea that they won't recognize it means they will never apologize for it, make amends for it, and do things to stop it. And you know that's true because their leaders simply won't condemn it. They simply won't speak out against it.
The hustlers come in and start to demonize America, lying about it, saying that white people want to hurt black people.
If any race of people should not have guilt about slavery, it's Caucasians.
The race hustlers and their sympathizers have descended into the gutter.
Now the president say Trayvon could have been me 35 years ago. Oh, this is a particularly helpful comment. Is that the president's admitting that, well, I guess because what? He was part of the Choom gang and he smoked pot and he did a little blow?
Young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs.
61 people died in Chicago, and I have their names right here.
My sincere belief is that the African-American community is being devastated by the collapse of the family. White people don't force black people to have babies out of wedlock.
It is to perpetuate the myth within the black community that all blacks remain helpless victims of white supremacy.
This president, I think, has exposed himself as a guy over and over and over again who has a deep-seated hatred for white people or the white culture. I don't know what it is.
Yes, it's us that's doing it. It's people on my side that are, the white supremacists. We're the ones with the problem. Can I just give you some facts before we actually go any further? Calling people out for who they have shown themselves to be. I don't know why this is the sin against all humanity, shining a light on people who are literally into pointing out that there's some disparity in the black community and white people have nothing to do with it, and that there are no white supremacists in the Republican Party, and there is no acquiescence in the Republican Party to people who, would say racist things. They don't accept them. They shun them. They shame them. They throw them out of the party. They don't want to have anything to do with that. I mean, how many stories are we going to have to see Fox and their ilk and the conservative right-wing talk show hosts, find just another loser, another Zimmerman, another Michael Dunn who doesn't like rap music so much that he kills kids, and that's fine because, they had to have been thugs. I mean, the music was so loud. Do you know what I mean? They find a Bundy in the desert, and he becomes their guy. They find a Rick Santorum who says, I don't want to give money to black people. They find a Paul Ryan who's willing to say, oh, there's a problem in the inner cities with a work ethic. They find a Newt Gingrich who says, those kids have nobody to look up to. Their fathers aren't working, and they're so lazy. And you've got Phil Robertson on Duck Dynasty saying, hey, I remember sharecropping. They were happy. They used to sing songs. The black people were much better off when they were enslaved or sharecroppers, or, the black family survived centuries of slavery and discrimination, but then once they were free from the yoke, they started disintegrating in the liberal welfare state. Can I give you some facts, okay? Here are the facts about middle-class people in this country. The latest numbers I have are for 2010. Middle-class black families, 40% of black families are middle class. 38, almost 39% of black families are middle class. 43% of white families are middle class. Doesn't that suggest to you that if it's roughly 40% for black families and white families, that 60% of black families and white families are not in the middle class? And if you look at, who's rich, it's 1%. So isn't that the problem? Isn't the problem that 60% of everybody lost their wealth, their greatest source of wealth, which was their home? Isn't that a problem? The problem isn't that black people, don't make it to the middle class and that white people do. The problem is that 40% of black people are in the middle class and 40% of white people are in the middle class, but 60% of everybody isn't in the middle class. That is the problem. Why do they keep on picking out black people as having some unique problem that isn't facing white people? There are white ghettos all over this country, and everybody who's honest knows it. Everybody knows the poorest counties in this country are rural. White rural counties. Those men, those boys, those kids are hanging around downtown doing absolutely nothing all day long, waiting for the check so that they can go and buy the damn drugs. And that is an epidemic in this country. And that is a problem in this country for everybody in this country. 60% of the people that aren't working are both black and white. I looked at the crime statistics. I looked at everything. There's really no difference except to say that although 9% of white people are pulled over and 9% of black people are pulled over and 9% of Hispanic people are pulled over, African Americans are almost three times more likely to be handcuffed and arrested within that 9% than white people who are pulled over are handcuffed, searched, and arrested. The whole thing is like institutionalized. You look at, Yeah, 3 times more likely. 3 times more likely to be searched than whites, 3 times more likely to be handcuffed than whites, and 3 times more likely to be arrested than whites. And according to the U.S. Department of Justice, African Americans have sentences for drug convictions of more than 1 year in prison, in state prisons, than any other offense. These are nonviolent crimes, but blacks are imprisoned much more regularly than whites are for the same offenses, the same exact offenses. And then you have the nerve to sit there and say, why is there a problem with keeping black families together? You know, slavery did this too. And what is with the happy memories of intact families during the slave times? You know that in slave times, parents were sold off. A father could be sold off. A kid could be sold off. A daughter could be sold off. Your mother could be sold. What are they talking about? These wonderful times that they long for with these intact families that survive. And by the way, I want to give you some numbers on black-owned businesses. Black-owned businesses in the United States increased by 60% between 2002 and 2007. There are about 2 million black firms in this country. Those black business owners employ about 1 million people in this country, 921,032 people. That is an increase of 22%. Their payrolls total $23.9 billion. Receipts from black-owned business total $98.9 billion. That's up 50% since 2002. In 2007, 1.8 million black-owned businesses had employees, and those receipts totaled $38.6 billion, an increase of 69%. I mean, the number of black-owned businesses with receipts of over $1 million or more increased by 35%. The problem isn't middle-class black people, and the problem isn't middle-class white people. The problem is that people are being kicked out of the middle class because they lost their assets, and their most valuable asset was their home or their 401k, and that was because of a great heist, a giant bank heist that the Republicans have clearly decided they're going to cover up. And the only reason why they single out black people is because of the way black people vote. Black people, young people, and women vote the same way. This is why student IDs won't be accepted in Texas, but concealed carry permits will. This is why they go to great lengths to suppress the African-American vote, to take away early voting days, to take away Sunday voting days, because souls to the polls works. Because people go to their services, then there's a bus waiting outside, maybe they have a little, something to eat, and then the bus takes them to the polling place, and they all vote together in a communal way, and they love doing that, and it's a tradition. And they want to break that tradition. Anything that holds a community together must be broken if that community is young people, if that community is women people, and if that community is black people. That's the problem with African Americans as far as the Republicans are concerned. The problem is the way African Americans vote, the way women vote, the way young people vote. And that is why there's an all-out attack on single women, because single women vote Democratic almost all the time. That's why there's an attack on youth, and that's why there's an attack on African Americans. That is the simple, honest-to-God, fact-based truth. But they keep on using this great divide that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, you want to know something? Here, this is like the best article of the day. This was written by Jane Tim for MSNBC, actually. There was a report that came out. The real long report is global, it's in Global Research. It's an Associated Press report. It reports that 80% of all Americans deal with joblessness, near poverty, or reliance on welfare at some point in their lives. 4 out of 5 Americans live near poverty, without work, or rely on welfare at least one time during their lives. Okay, so 4 out of 5 Americans, that cannot be all black people, right? Okay. But the really, really amazing thing is that they found in this study that racial disparities in poverty are almost non-existent. We've reached equality, everybody. We've reached equality. Racial disparities in poverty are lessening for the first time ever. The number of white single moms living in poverty is equal to the number of impoverished black single moms. Congratulations, women, we've done it. They have... that's the war on women. That's why there's a war on women. That's why they always attack the family unit. They always blame the single mothers who are busting their asses. Okay? The whole idea is to depress single women, to depress the African Americans, and to depress young people who vote Democratic. And the only problem that the Republican Party really has with those three groups is we don't vote for them. And therefore, we must be marginalized, despised, called names, have a meme about us that we're somehow less than everybody else. But it's untrue. It's untrue. Whites see their economic futures deteriorating. 63% called their families' economic futures poor. 76% of whites will face a year or more of economic insecurity by the time they're 60. Minorities face the greatest risk of falling into economic hardship, with 90% of non-whites living near poverty in their lifetime. We're all terrified, okay? Every single one, 4 out of 5 of us are nervous about our futures. And that is because the money has gone to the top 1%. That's why you have numbers that clearly show that about 40% of African Americans are in the middle class and 40% of white Americans are in the middle class, which means 60% of white Americans and 60% of black Americans aren't. And the number of people who were middle class is deteriorating as well. The bottom 40% of the population owns 3/10 of the nation's wealth now. 3/10. And the top 20% owns 84% of the nation's wealth. And these right-wingers will go out there and they'll say, well, look, top 20%, they're supporting everybody. That's because they own everything. You know, the more you own, the more taxes you pay. The less you own, the less taxes you pay. We would like to own more and pay more. 46.2 million Americans, 15% of this country is poor. Now, before the war on poverty, 25% of this country was poor. And we really made a good run at it, and we got it down to 12%, and then we gave up on it. And over the past 30 years, they've said, not only don't we want to lift people out of poverty, but we want to take the middle class and decimate it. And then we're going to tell the white middle class that the blacks did it to them. And that's exactly what the Southern strategy was always all about, dividing people along racial lines. And now the Republicans, they do it like out in the open. And when you call them on it and you say this is ridiculous, the stats don't prove anything about what you're saying. What the stats prove is that your policies have caused Americans who were in the middle class or in the upper middle class, who were business owners, et cetera, to lose their main assets, which were their 401ks, which was their home. More people are renting in this country than doing any other thing. I mean, this is anathema to a great and meaningful America. The middle class is the most important part, and they knew that, and they broke it. And they broke it, and now they're saying to the white people who have never, really thought about this, that, they are reaching equality on the bottom of the scale, but not reaching equality on the top of the scale. They've decided that it's Republican and Democrat. Well, I got news for you. It's oligarchy and democracy that are at war with each other, and they call themselves Republicans, they're Republicans, but the reason why they can't change the policies that cause this is because they're for the policies that cause this, because they are oligarchs. They created, over 30 years, a plutocracy. They want corporate rule. This is why corporations are people, my friend. Corporations should be in charge of your life, everybody's life. They know better. They know what kind of religion you should have, whether you should have contraception. They know where the money should go in politics better than you do. They know who should be unionized, which is no one. They know what you should make, which is not minimum wage. They know that you shouldn't have a safe work environment because it makes you lazy or some such crap. Listen, these people are on a mission, and they have been doing this for 30 years. And quite frankly, in this weird way, race has nothing to do with it. It's just a sledgehammer they use to convince poor and middle-class white voters who are hanging on by their fingernails who to blame for this. It's deflecting the blame from who did it to them, which is their leadership, their elected officials, their crony capitalism, their deregulation policies, their tax code, that's who did it. And they just need to deflect the attention. So Now it's going to be, listen, we've reached equality. In a horrible way. It's unbelievable. 10 till.
Racism has been whipped up by the left, by the Democrat Party, as a means of silencing its opponents. The Democrat Party is not about self-reliance and rugged individualism and freedom. They're about dependence. They need people depending on them. They don't want people exercising the kind of creative freedom and entrepreneurial freedom that can launch them into a circumstance where they don't need government to get by. Democrat Party's always been based on racism. They formed the KKK. The Democrats are the ones that wrote and passed and signed and enforced every Jim Crow law
God
has ever been in this country.
Yeah, except the whole South
They're
flipped.
the ones that wouldn't let blacks at the University of Mississippi. They're the ones that fire-hosed them and dogged them. It's Selma. It's the Democrats were the big segregationists. And they have now just turned that around and make that charge of racism everywhere to silence critics. Look how effective it is. There is no criticism of Barack Obama, absolutely none of any substance from the Republican Party because they're so afraid of being called racist.
Oh, my God. I don't know what fantasy world they live in, but I wonder what corporate America would do without government subsidies, without government largesse, without the tax code favoring them, without carried interest, without, billions of dollars to the most profitable industries. I mean, they're the ones that, obviously latch on to government and decide all that money that we pay in taxes belongs to them. And the tax code must redistribute that money to them, or else you will be denigrated. You will be marginalized. You will be put out of business.
Friday is spelled with a B and an S. It's BS News for this, the final Friday of April 2014, and away we go. Dateline, courting disaster. The Supreme Court this week threw affirmative action into the trash basket. I certainly hope they emptied the trash basket first. It was filled to the brim with discarded voting rights. Dateline, Bat-Crapistan. Welfare rancher Cliven Bundy continued holding daily press conferences in Nevada despite coming under fire for blatantly racist statements. Why does such a dumb, inarticulate, and racist person think they should speak in public? It must be something Cliven Bundy picked up from Sean Hannity. Bundy has been a matinee idol to his far-right fans. Fans of Elvis threw their panties onto the stage. Not thinking that's going to happen with Cliven Bundy's militia fan base. Those guys always go commando. Hello! Let's move on. Bundy tried to fend off charges of racism by appearing on Alex Jones's show, where Jones called Bundy, quote, a good man and a man of his word. Unfortunately, his word is the N-word. And as long as we're on race, Dateline, back in black. One Wall Street Journal writer really likes Bill O'Reilly's approach to problems in the black community. He said O'Reilly should be considered the, and I'm quoting, first black primetime cable news host. Nobody was happier to hear that than Fox News themselves, who immediately cut O'Reilly's salary by 30%. And the racial hits just keep on coming. Finally, Dateline rotten eggs. Over Easter, some parents in Virginia found Easter eggs that had been planted in the yards containing racist messages. Authorities are recommending that next year, just to be safe, parents should only use brown eggs. I have a dream, or at least I will after happy hour. It's BS News for Friday. Have a great weekend.
You too, Duff. You too. Yeah, so, all right, let me play you this, strange as strange can get press conference that Bundy gave last night. Then, of course, he went on Alex Jones's show, which, that is not the place to go to convince people you are not some kind of a racist lunatic. But this is all lost on Cliven. It's really lost. I don't know what it is. Is he drunk with power? Is he drunk with militia power? Is he drunk, is it, like they formed a clique like some mean girls out there? I mean, Or is he just addicted to the rush of fame? I mean, I have no idea what it is. He's like the Lindsay Lohan of militia guys. He just can't stay off the TV. He just can't accept the fact that he's about to go back into obscurity and that, he's going to have to pay $1 million that he owes because he's been a welfare cowboy, is what he's been. I mean, this guy's taking advantage of a subsidy that doesn't even exist. That's nerve, okay? At least GE gets it written into the law, I mean, it is amazing how the Republican Party are the biggest taker party in the history of the universe. It's like the best number I could give you is $83 billion. Why? $83 billion is what they get in oil and gas subsidies every single year. And $83 billion is the entire cost of the entire food stamp program. So, they're fighting over the same damn money. Everybody wants that damn money. And the fact that people out here, me, we don't have a lobby shop. We don't have lobbyists. We don't have, high-priced lawyers that could go and, lobby Congress for, benefits in the tax code. We don't have the ability to show up on Capitol Hill and, tell them what millionaires want or tell them what middle class want or tell them what poor people need. We're not allowed to do that. Only the billionaires could do that. Only the millionaires could do that. Only people with lobbyists and $300 million to throw at somebody during an election cycle. They're the only ones being heard now. I mean, it's just so interesting. And yet they want to point out who's getting welfare. Cliven Bundy is a welfare recipient of welfare that isn't even available to him legally. I mean, he breaks federal law and then claims he's entitled to it. I can't even sort out, what lunatic fantasy world he lives in. But the guy is, I don't know, he's like drunk with this thing. He won't stop being on the TV now.
I'm wondering, Cliven Bundy's wondering about these people. Now I'm talking about...
Oh, no, you can't play that. That's just awful. Here, I'll do the quick Chris Cuomo.
I understand that Martin Luther King's message was one of peace and freedom, and that when you suggest that you were wondering if blacks were better off as slaves, that's the opposite of freedom and very offensive to people, and I think you probably know that.
Well, let me tell you, I took this boot off, so I went to put it in my foot in my mouth with the boot on. But let me see if I can say something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I sinned, and maybe I need to ask forgiveness, and maybe I don't know what I actually said. But when you talk about prejudice, we're talking about not being able to exercise what we think and our feelings, but we don't have freedom to say what we want. If I say Negro or black boy or slave, I'm not. If those people cannot take those kind of words and not be offensive, then Martin Luther King hasn't got his job done yet.
Somebody needs to tell him that Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, April 4th. Somebody really needs to tell him that. But beyond that, see, here's the Republican theory, that they're entitled. This is the entitlement culture that he represents. They're entitled to say whatever they want to say without consequences. Now, it is a little bit of free country still, and you can say a little bit of what you want to say. I mean, speech isn't free anymore, let's just face facts, but you can say whatever you want to say. Obviously, they say some of the most heinous things at those tea parties. Nobody gets arrested. They say the most heinous things at Republican debates. Nobody gets arrested. They say the most heinous things in Iowa at the caucuses. Nobody gets arrested. They play the race card constantly. They speak in code, welfare queen, no work ethic, inner city, whatever. But there are consequences. They want a country where they can say and spew any damn thing they want without consequences. Those are the law and order, rugged individualist people. No consequences, no accountability. They shouldn't have to be made to feel ashamed of the crap they say. I don't know, like what the world looks like in their head, but I do know that's what Cliven Bundy and others have said. They've said that unless they're free to say black boy, unless they're free to say nigra, unless they're free to, denigrate Jews, and unless they're free to, scream about Obama's a Kenyan, Muslim, Marxist, Maoist, socialist, without consequences, then this country is no longer free. This is why they're always screaming about, and the left, they boycott me, or the left, they do. Those are the consequences of calling a young college woman who's trying to argue that women's health care ought to include birth control. That's the consequences of calling her a prostitute and a slut. There are consequences, but they want to be able to say whatever they want to say without anybody pointing out that they should be ashamed of themselves, that what they say is false, or what they say is hurtful, or what they say is counterproductive, or what they say is mean, or what they say is ugly, or what they say is causing a great rift in America that doesn't deserve to be there. Because, frankly, if you look at the race to the bottom, we've all gotten there at the same time because of their policy. I mean, it is an amazing thing, really. It truly is.
The point of complaint about you, Mr. Bundy, is that you don't do what the other ranchers do. You haven't done it for 20 years. You're supposed to pay for the use of the land. Your state constitution says that you should pay for it. The Constitution in your pocket that you have inside your jacket says that the federal government can own land. You know all of this, but you're resisting the rules.
Okay. How much land does this say they could own? How much land does it say they own?
He's holding up a Constitution with a drawing on it, a drawing of a founding father. He's holding it up, and he's trying to get into a constitutional argument with Chris Cuomo, who, frankly, knows more about the Constitution than Cliven does.
You tell me how much land it says they can own. That's a very good question. I said in 5 minutes you can figure out how much land they can own. So you tell me.
The Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, and in the Fifth Amendment, gives the federal government the right to appropriate and purchase land. Your state constitution recognizes...
For how? What person? For what purpose? For what purpose?
For purposes that it deems appropriate.
What purpose can they do it?
And specifically...
No, I don't say that.
Absolutely it does. You should read the book instead of just holding it in your pocket. But when you look at your state constitution, it says that it respects the federal law. And that's why your ranchers, your brother and sister ranchers, pay the fees that you refuse to. Now you come on the show, you hold up a dead calf, and that makes everybody upset. But you should look at yourself for why the calf is dead, because if you paid the fees, this wouldn't have happened. Isn't that a fair point?
No, it's not.
Because?
It's not a fair point at all. This is the United States of America. I live in a sovereign state of the state of Nevada, and I abide by all of their state laws. And I'll be damned if this is a property of the United States. They have no business here.
No matter what you tell him, okay? No matter what you show him. I mean, he starts out saying, maybe I sinned, maybe I did something wrong, I took my boot off because I can't put my foot in my... Starts off okay. Then he starts to say, I should be able to, in a free country, take any land that I want. I don't recognize the federal government. I don't know what the Constitution says. I'm unclear about it. And frankly, Martin Luther King didn't do his job, because if I want to... listen, these people are just... It's sad, because it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to see who could be the least educated person on the government of the United States. I mean, it's just like pure ignorance out there. But do you think he thought of this by himself? This is a combination of constant Republican rantings, broadcast every single day, thousands of hours of this lunacy, this revisionist history, this crazy talk, mixed with racism and hatred. And that's what you get. Except he's out there with over 1,000 armed people. 19 after.
Martin Luther King wanted us to get over that type of stuff. And I said yesterday, I said it's time for a discussion about this. We need to get over this. I don't care what your race is, we need to get over this prejudice stuff so that those words are not offensive. They're not offensive to me. You can say them to me, and I wouldn't be offended.
Cliven Bundy wouldn't be offended if you called him, a name. This is a perfect example of white privilege. This is a perfect example. This man thinks that he's able to take what he wants to take, disregard federal law, say that he's disregarding federal law, attract armed people to come to his aid, and then denigrate African Americans and say he wonders if they were better off when they were held in bondage, beaten, and their families were sold off around them. Wasn't that better and he thinks that he has the right, because of free speech, to say these things without consequences. It just doesn't work like that. But Alex Jones, the place that you go when you want to explain that you are not a lunatic, right? That's where you would go. You're better off doing it at a cross burning. But he goes to Alex Jones, and Alex tells him, you're all right with me.
If they think I'm racist, they're totally wrong. And if I think, I'm wondering, are they better off under the old system of slavery, or are they better off under the welfare slavery that they're under now? I'm not saying one way or the other, but I am wondering. It seems to me like maybe they were happier. And maybe they did have better families, and their family structure was better.
I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves picking cotton and having a family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy? Are those quotes accurate? Because you told me that's not exactly what you said.
No, that's not exactly what it said.
And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves picking cotton, having a family life, and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy?
Okay, that was his first appearance on Alex Jones. Then he went back.
I'm quite excited about the respond, really. First, I want to tell the black community that I've gained more respect and more love for you the last few weeks than I've ever had. And I am concerned about the individual person, each one of you. And now this is a statement, and put it this way. I said, I'm wondering if you're better off. Your young women are having abortions, and your young men are being thrown in jail. And your older women are sitting out on the sidewalk with your children and grandchildren, and they don't seem to be happy. And what I'm wondering is, are you better off in this type of slavery than you were when you was home with your family unit, with your gardens, with your chickens, with your men working, and your family life? Are you better off now, or were you better off then? I'm wondering these things.
What do you think of the New York Times trying to take this out of context and spin it?
Well, I haven't really read that, and I don't know for sure, but yeah, if they think I'm racist, they're totally wrong.
It takes your breath away, doesn't it? I mean, you can't really argue with the most ignorant people on the planet. And these two talking to each other is really, it's a high bar. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow, he's gained more respect and more love for you in the black community in the last few weeks than he ever had. I take it that wasn't an extraordinarily high bar. But the bar for, like, ignorance is so high on the AM dial. I mean, it's just, it's like they try to outdo each other. Like, who could be the most ridiculously ignorant, moronic person? Who can say the least fact-filled thing? It blows your mind. It blows your mind. And then he repeats it again. Black people may have been better off as slaves. So much for his love for the black community. Apparently he loves you so much, black community, he just can't quit you. He can't let you go. from like human bondage. He can't let you go. Let my people go. I mean, it's just, and this is just a coincidence, according to everybody else in the Republican Party. It's just a coincidence that this guy happened to be the latest guy that they rallied around James Yeager, who threatened to kill the president. They rallied around George Zimmerman. They rallied around Michael Dunn. They rallied around Bill O'Reilly after years of screaming Tiller the baby killer, and then somebody kills Tiller. It's like, we don't know who he is. We have no idea. This has nothing to do with us. I mean, this is just the latest one. But they're not racist, you know. They love you.
What do you think of the New York Times trying to take this out of context and spin it?
Well, I haven't really read that, and I don't know for sure. But yeah, if they think I'm racist, they're totally wrong. And if I think, I'm wondering, are they better off under the old system of slavery, or are they better off under the
who wonders that
slavery that they're under now?
Why isn't that settled?
I'm not saying one way or the other, but I am wondering. It seems to me like maybe they were happier, and maybe they did have better families, and their family structure was better, and so. That's the question in my mind. And
undoubtedly,
there is a question.
Well, undoubtedly, I'm not endorsing slavery or segregation. They were two Byzantine feudal systems. Sharecroppers run similar systems. But undoubtedly, the statistics of black communities, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 90% legitimacy, fathers at home. In fact, I've seen even Harvard's own numbers and Princeton's own numbers. We've done reports on this. Lower crime rates than the white community in the 30s. And I remember you saying over and over again, unprompted, we can pull up the clips, that everyone around the world you believe has a good soul and wants freedom. You said in every country in the world. So how is that you're saying everybody worldwide wants freedom, but you don't like black people?
And I know black people want freedom, and I know that their souls are good. Individually, I know that. And that's what our Constitution was all about, is to be able to, these people to be able to exercise their agency, be able to feel free, be able to speak, be able to go and do the things, to be able to experiment, and for sure be able to have good families. That's what our founding fathers want, and I know that's what our Heavenly Father wants for them. For them and for us, there's no difference between them and us. We're all the same. And our Heavenly Father loves us the same. He gives us the same opportunity, and we are the same. And so there's no prejudice in my mind at all.
None. That man is in such deep denial, it's unbelievable. There is no prejudice in his mind, but he does wonder in his mind and out loud whether or not black people would be better off in slavery. He does wonder. He wonders, is that not... I mean, shouldn't that be settled in your head? Shouldn't that be a settled question in your mind? Shouldn't that be something that you don't have to wonder about? Oh, my God. It's just unbelievable. All right, Lisa in Portland, Oregon.
Hi, Randy. Yeah, if I ever thought that at all, I instantly said no.
Right, I mean, it's so answerable.
Yeah.
And he's been wondering about it for almost a month now out loud.
Enough to say it out loud, which is what's really unbelievable.
Mm.
But the reason he says the things he's doing, and you basically already touched on this, he's just not a smart guy.
No.
He's not. And an opportunist came along and wanted his opinion, and so he thought he was smart for a minute. But he's complaining about the fact that he does not have the right to say the things he says, and we have the right to call him an idiot and watch him disappear into obscurity, basically.
Well, listen, if he says racist things, he's free to say them, but we're also free to say he's saying racist things.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. We have as much freedom. Nobody's arresting.
And I love the way that they torture everything about our Constitution. I love the way that they torture the Second Amendment. That's, this weekend is the big NRA rally, the big NRA conference. This should be fun. But yeah, because they only celebrate half of it, not the first half, just the dot.
Right, the part they like.
Yeah, and the First Amendment, I mean, it blows my mind that, they like to talk about how free they are to speak. When the Supreme Court is telling them, quite frankly, corporations get to speak louder, and they're not upset about that. And then they think free speech comes with no consequences, no accountability for what you say. Where did it say that you get to say whatever you want, and I don't get to call you out as being somebody that's ignorant or racist or ugly or hideous or a problem or somebody that's whose words are tearing the country apart? I mean, where does it say that?
That's the not smart part. They don't think that far ahead, and that's kind of tragic. And something else. What if someone else tries to use this land that he's using that is not leased to him? Who's he going to call and say, hey, get off my land?
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy he's a deadbeat. It's ridiculous. He's a deadbeat. He's always been a deadbeat. He's been one for 20 years. He lied about his ancestry. He lied about his ancestral claims to this land. They've only been there since 1954. That's not, Death Valley days. That's happy days.
Right.
I mean, the guy is just so full of crap, and he's starting to believe his own swill, and this is what happens to very stupid people who are surrounded by stupider people who happen to be elected officials who tell them, yeah, you go for it, you do it. Egged on by Sean Hannity, egged on by, this sheriff, Mr. Mack, egged on by, I mean, all these people surrounded him and said, come nestle in our armpits, we got you, say whatever you want to say, and they picked the worst guy. They picked a guy who's breaking federal law and a racist on top of it, who's pissing off the other ranchers because they don't steal, they pay. Listen, and this is the really crazy part. I looked it up. If he wanted to pay the state grazing fees instead of the federal grazing fees, which are subsidized grazing fees, the grazing fees for federal land, which is subsidized by the federal government, it's like $1.35 a head, something like that. The grazing fees that the state imposes is like $12 a head. So if he wants to pay the state fees, he's welcome to do that.
But it's not about the money.
Oh, he's such a... Listen, I mean, and there's 13 of them out there. He's had 13 children.
That's amazing. I mean, well, that just speaks on its own.
I don't understand why they. Well, I understand why they picked him. They pick every foul person, and they rally around him. George Zimmerman killed an unarmed teenager. He was their hero for months. Anthony in the Bronx.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
Excuse me.
Everybody's very nasal today.
I'm just choked up because I'm talking to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I'm really getting tired of having this argument. I'm like, if these people want their own country with their own government, let them go. Let them have it.
I'm so there. I really am. I'm so there.
Having this argument?
I don't know. You know how much money we could save in the North if we just let the South go?
But the weird thing is, if you give them this country that they want, or heterosexual, Christian, white country, none of them will want to live there.
I don't know about that. Why do you say that?
Michelle Bachmann and Marcus Bachmann will not live there.
Why not?
Because Marcus.
Oh, Marcus might not love it, but she would.
Ann Coulter would not want to live there. Sean Hannity, for all his talk, he wouldn't want to live there. None of them would want to live in this country. This mythical country that they've created.
I can't really worry about where they would want to live. All I know is that we would save an enormous amount of money. And we would keep all the really good parts of our infrastructure. They would get the dirt and gravel roads. They would get the desert. They would get the mountaintops that they sawed off, right?
And let's give them this wall.
They would get the water with the coal ash in it. They would
give them this wall that they want to build around their country to protect them from immigrants.
Yeah, let them do it. Let them do it. Let them have it. I mean, listen, I'm glad we freed the slaves. Other than that, I think Lincoln made a huge mistake. Really huge. Big, giant mistake. Catherine in Madison, Wisconsin.
Hi. Well, really about the cows. It's the Coke pimps picked the wrong guy to be their voice again, somebody who didn't have much education. Americans for Prosperity and Colorado were both involved in promoting this whole thing and making it big and agitating things to bring in the militia. There's a article on it. And it's not about the cows, it's about the land. ALEC has 5 western states that are writing bills that will demand that the federal land be turned over to the states for states' quote-unquote sovereignty, which, of course, they'll sell to the Kochs. The bill has already been passed in the state of Utah. It's called the Transfer of Public Lands Bill. Let's see, where is this exactly? Transfer of Public Lands Act. It's gone through a couple of incarnations from 2012 to 2014. It's got a lot more spin on it in the 2014 bill, and you have to read the 2012 bill to see where the real intent is. So, you know, it's called the Sage Wars. They're looking for a point to get in and have that happen.
Well, you know what? Let them do what they're going to do, and you know, let's see. Listen, if they, I hate to say this because our legislative process is so corrupt now, but if they went through if Cliven Bundy had gone through some legislative process by which he claimed that he was a good steward of this land for 20 years and, you know, could prove to the court that the land should be conveyed to him for his care and blah, 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 and the court agreed with him, then you really wouldn't have anything to say.
No, but he's a pawn.
But right, exactly. He did go to court, and he lost. And he's been in court for 20 years, and every time he's gone, he's lost. So, you know, I mean, like I said, if you want to go through a legislative process, if you want to, convince people that you're a better steward of the land, and you can get people to, convey it to you, whatever, fine. But this
isn't about individuals. This is about the state saying that the feds have to give them back the land.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm saying if they can make that case, then, and the court says yes, then they've made that case.
And then they'll sell it to the Koch brothers, which is the ultimate, because they're not going to be able to afford to do what the BLM does. And that's really the whole goal.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there's corporate interests in getting the land to be deemed as part and parcel of the state's. I mean, obviously. I mean, but the court didn't buy it when Cliven Bundy did it. So it'd be kind of interesting if the court does buy it, if the state does it, and then the state turns around and says. Although I will say, the big holdup for the XL pipeline is the state of Nebraska. So it's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy. But we're talking about Utah and Colorado. We're not talking about Nebraska.
What's the difference?
The difference is the ranchers and the people there understood that they were on top of an aquifer. And at this point, in order not to ruin the resource, people have to band together. Now, who will want that aquifer later on is another story, and hopefully another decade.
Right, I understand. But if they're successful in court, let's say, and they can persuade the court that land should be given to the state, even though their Constitution provided that the land of Nevada would go to the federal government in exchange for statehood. I mean, that's the deal they made. So if it gets reversed and they say, okay, now you could have the land, that's fine. The state is still going to have something to say about what's done on that land in their own backyard, right? So these people that make this localism argument, saying that the state is much better off having the land under the state's control, obviously they're doing it with an eye towards selling that land to corporate interests. But in the end, won't the people on that land, the other ranchers, have something to say about whether or not the Kochs come in there and start fracking their land and causing earthquakes?
Exactly. So if you divide and conquer, you cause chaos, and you actually cause a mini civil war. Who's going to lose at the ballot box, Randy? Isn't it going to be the Democrats in 2014 or 2016 whenever they manage to pull this off?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they have, Harry Reid is their senator in Nevada, and then the other one is Dean Heller. So it's kind of a swing state there. And you've got Steve Horsford, who is, believe it or not, the first black representative from Nevada, happens to be Cliven Bundy's representative.
Well, that gives me hope.
Right. So, it's obvious that there's some sort of a nefarious reason for, after all this time, wanting to return the land to the state and all this. And yes, people are probably interested in purchasing but that means that the local people would get to say whether or not they want their land fracked.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a done thing that, if they gave the land to the state, which has to be litigated for a really long time, that the state would then turn around and sell the land to somebody that wants to destroy the land. I mean, there would be a lot of pushback from the Vegas businesses. There'd be a lot of pushback from the other ranchers in the area. There'd be a lot of pushback. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. There's always, a bigger picture. Nothing is ever what it seems to be. And I understand why they rallied around this guy and why there's a civil war going on out there and why, and that the insurgents out there, they're militants, they're terrorists, they're all armed, pointing their weapons at federal officers. What else would you call them? They want to settle it at the end of a gun, but it can't be settled that way. I refer you to the Whiskey Rebellion. It can't be settled that way. They would be really, 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 really sorry. I wanted to say something else, but they'd be really, really sorry if they start shooting like that. But let them go to court is what I'm saying. Just if there was some process that we recognize and they won, well, then they won. It's just that way. 49 after. You remember this guy? I don't know if you remember him. He's a two-term member of Congress. He represents Staten Island, New York. His name's Michael Grimm, not to be confused with Ryan Grimm, who is a reporter. He threatened some reporter in Capitol Hill just recently. The reporter was trying to ask him about an ongoing investigation that was being conducted by the FBI and the House Ethics Committee about illegal fundraising during the 2010 campaign. He was listed as Crew, Crew that keeps track of corruption. Crew's most corrupt in 2011 and 2012. It looks like he's going to be charged. I just wanted you to remember who he was.
And just finally, before we let you go, since we have you here, we haven't had a chance to kind of talk about some of the...
I'm not speaking about anything that's off topic. This is only about the president.
Well, what about...
Thank you.
All right, so Congressman Michael Grimm does not want to talk about some of the allegations concerning his campaign finances. We wanted to get him on camera on that, but he, as you saw, refused to talk about that. Back to you.
Why? Let me be clear to you. Yeah, I think you asked me again.
He said, if you ever do that to me again, I'll throw you off the effing balcony. And Michael Scioto, who was the reporter, he said, I just wanted to ask you a question. It's a valid question. You're not man enough. I'll break you in half like a boy. That was fun. Remember Michael Grimm? Oh, sorry, it's repeating. I mean, it's just like amazing. These guys are like, you really have to go out of your way to violate campaign finance law because there isn't any. But that was Michael Grimm, and he came back and threatened to throw this kid off the balcony and break him like a boy. What does that mean? He's just like a woman, but he breaks just like a little boy? I mean, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Only a Republican would know what breaking you like a little boy means. But it looks like he might be charged maybe today, maybe, tomorrow? Another one bites the dust. And he says he's going to stay in Congress. He's claiming innocence. And yet the woman who is part of she won't testify. She absolutely will not testify against him. And they said that the reason why she should not testify against him is because she's not very sophisticated. She was just trying to help him. So leave her alone. It's an epidemic of a lack of sophistication with Republicans, isn't there? Yeah. Well-settled things aren't settled in their heads.
They abort their young children. They put their young men in jail because they never learned how to pick cotton. And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves picking cotton,
Okay, everybody calm down. That's not racist. That's just being consistent. Bundy does not believe in the federal government, so it would be hypocritical for him to believe in the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm sure he's had a chance to clarify that statement. Jim?
I'm wondering, are they happier now under this government subsidy system than they were when they were slaves and they was able to have their family structure together and chickens and gardens and the people had something to do?
Well, that certainly makes it crystal clear. He left the chickens out the first time. They really tie the whole idea together. The point is, this man is a victim of racism, as is made clear on the Bundy Facebook page, saying, quote, Cliven is a good man. He loves all people. He is not a racist man. He wants what is best for everyone. Okay? He wants what's best for everyone. And he's just wondering if, for some people, that's slavery. Is it a crime to wonder now? And folks, my one regret here is that I did not embrace Cliven Bundy sooner like Sean Hannity did. You know, really draw him to my bosom, to link us inexorably together, to hang him around my neck like some kind of lucky dead seabird. But you beat me to it, Sean. You're good, buddy. You're good. Thanks to your nonstop supportive coverage of Bundy, now when anyone thinks of folks who have insight into the Negro, they'll think of Sean Hannity. I mean, these two... These two go together like Ku and Klux. I mean, I salute you, Sean. I salute you for bravely standing by a man whose only crime was breaking federal law.
Oh, God, they are so good. They are so freaking good. Pointing out the obvious. It's a great way to make a living. That's what I've done for, all these years. It's satisfying, I must say, to point out the obvious. And like I said, it must be some strange coincidence that each and every time the Fox News people go on a tear or rally around somebody, they turn out to be, teenage murderers, the murderer of a teenager like George Zimmerman or Michael Dunn or like Duck Dynasty. Phil Robertson is a friend of the show, singing and happy. He said it's his recollection of slavery that, slaves used to sing and they were happy. And when he was working alongside, indentured servants in Louisiana cotton fields, he said they seem to be happier than they are now. They, by the way. And, you've got like Nugent, who's a friend of the show, and he ends up having to be lectured to by Rick Perry, the secessionist. And he has to be told by Rick Perry, who changed his glasses and hopes you forget everything he ever said, to apologize for calling the President of the United States a subhuman mongrel. It's just a coincidence. It's a coincidence that Ted Cruz and Cliven Bundy became so close that if you combine their names, you'd have Ted Bundy. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now all of a sudden they're going to run away from him. They're going to run away and they're going to leave skid marks. I mean, it's like unbelievable to me.
What is your response to Harry Reid?
I don't have a response for Harry Reid, but I have a response for every sheriff across the United States. Every county sheriff across the United States disarm the federal bureaucrats. Take the federal United States bureaucrats' guns away. That's my message today. They wanted to show the American people and the world that they had unlimited power, and they had taken over state sovereignty or Nevada laws or public lands.
All right.
Listen, do you think they really have taken it over? I don't think so. They might have took over our Clark County Sheriff, but they never took over we the people, the sovereign people of this nation. We're standing.
and we're gonna stand until we take the guns away from those bureaucracies.
What would happen if they came in the early morning hours one day to your ranch?
Well, first I got to say, Harry, get your army out of Nevada. Get your army away from my ranch and off the Clark County public land, and keep it out. And if they come, we'll deal with them tonight. If that's what we got to do, we'll just deal with you. Just when you got guts enough to do it, come on.
Well, he also said, Richard Mack, I don't think it would be possible to launch a raid without violence. If they came to arrest you, would you surrender?
I went to the proper authorities.
Meaning?
I don't believe. There would have to be Clark County Sheriff. If he come to arrest me, I would definitely let him arrest me.
All right, let me go.
He's the only man.
Go ahead.
He's the only man with arresting power in Clark County, Nevada.
What world do these people live in where the sheriff has more power than the federal government? I mean, it's just so amazing. And, you know, when you talk to this guy, like almost every day, twice a day, like Sean Hannity did, and you hear these answers and this fumbling, babbling, crazy lunacy and this denial of what the Constitution. I mean, don't you say to your producer, don't you say to your to the executive producer, don't you say to the program directors, don't you say to your boss, I'm not interviewing this guy anymore. This guy's making a mockery out of everything. He's making a mockery out of me and this show. He's a loose cannon. He's ready to go off. This guy is ignorant. And no, they just keep on inviting. And then all of a sudden he opens his mouth and says things about, I'm just wondering if the black boys were happier when they were in slavery. This isn't a settled question in his head, and they're shocked, I tell you. Shocked that there's gambling in Casablanca. I mean, it's so sick.
His name was Cliven Bundy of Bunkerville, Nevada. If you don't know his story, I think you really oughta. See, back in 1993, the feds demanded grazing fees on public land the Bundy clan used since the 1870s. State decree from 1953 grants federal authority over all state public property, as stated in the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty. But Cliven couldn't understand, why should he have to pay for land? This land belongs to you and me, that's what he told Sean Hannity. This is the ballad of Cliven Bundy. Take it, Cliven!
I want to tell you one more thing I know about the Negro.
Okay, that's enough of the song.
All right, let's see.
Unfortunately, nothing rhymes with Negro.
The Tea Party is tired of blacks, Negras, Muslims calling us racist.
It's such a stupid party. I don't even know that it is a party. It's like a militia movement or some armed insurrection thing. They're just like the stupidest people on the planet, but they're armed. They're really armed. They're armed to the freaking teeth, and they're full of this sovereign citizen, I hate the federal government, and black people thing. It's just so amazing. It's so freaky. Listen, I'm leaving the country, right, tomorrow. Just for a week, and then I'll be back. I promise. And then, we'll finish out the last 2 weeks together. It'll be bittersweet, but it will be, sweet. And I'll be better, but it'll be okay. But, who ever thought that in the 21st century it was going to sound like that at the end of a beautiful career? The fact that it's gone so ass backwards is, it's disheartening, is what it is. It's sad. It's really sad. But when I leave the country, listen, this is how it goes. Remember we talked to a guy from Malta the other day? And I asked him, you know, like, how do you get your TV? Because when you leave the country, you don't get, you know, there's Sky TV is basically Rupert Murdoch's answer for Europe. Sky TV. And that's what you get. And on Sky TV, because Murdoch owns it, is Fox News. And the sick part is, that's what represents us abroad. That's what people hear. And so think about this. I have to go abroad. I have to go to a foreign country knowing that the only thing that people of this country know about America lately is that we're looking for a plane and Cliven Bundy. Can you imagine it? I mean, I can't wait to see their news. I can't wait to see, like, what's really going on in the world. I bet you anything they'll be talking about World War III and Ukraine and that AIDS is almost cured in Africa, you know, like important stuff, things that actually affect, you know, individual lives. But everything they're going to know about us, everything they're going to know about, you know, Americans is going to be that we can't stop obsessively covering a plane that no one can find in this day and age, and Cliven Bundy, and that he hates black people. And what's really amazing is CNN International is the other news outlet that's in English, and mostly they cover Africa, believe it or not. So these two things are going to, you know, be side by side, where they're covering Africa and that the AIDS crisis is very near the end, and that, you know, they're trying to make it so that no child is born with AIDS by treating mothers who are pregnant. They're getting very close to white. And, you know, you'll see all this really good stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, you'll turn it over to the other English channel, and you'll see, I hate niggers. It's like schizophrenic. But that's what they know about us, because this is what we show them about us. So bad. 18 after.
A weekend that hasn't gone by that someone says to me, Michelle, what in the world are you all waiting for in Congress? Why aren't you impeaching the president?
This was far more intrusive than what happened in Watergate.
This appears to be just the latest example of a culture of cover-ups and political intimidation in this administration.
What we're talking about here is an attitude that the government knows best. The nanny state is here to tell us all what to do, and if we start criticizing, you get targeted.
I really think it is a culture of cover-ups and intimidation that is getting the administration in so much trouble.
The buck stops at the president's desk.
The cover-up included several officials, up to and including President Obama.
I've worked in this town for over 20 years. I worked in a White House and on Capitol Hill, and I can say with a very strong sense of certainty that there are people very close to this president that not only knew what the IRS were doing, but authorized it.
White House counsel was notified 3 weeks ago that this was coming. Never told the president.
Hold it just a second. Hold it. White House counsel was told 3 weeks ago. The president said today that he heard about it in the media on Friday.
Correct. And the White House counsel statement's going to be he didn't bother to tell the president.
Communist nurtured subhuman mongrel.
It's amazing, the hunting of a president who's done nothing wrong, in fact, has done almost nothing except get a health care law passed, repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, kept us out of war, ended the war in Iraq, killed Osama bin Laden, got rid of Muammar Gaddafi, all of it, you know, without Congress's help, you know, did a stimulus package when he could, then he lost the Congress, and, you know, we've been sitting here treading water ever since because we have a Congress that actually is rooting for us to fail, is causing us to fail, refuses to help us not fail, only because of the hatred that they have for this president. This is really what spurred all this hostility and racism and ugly talk and the resurgence of the armed militia movement. Oh, by the way, you know, I mentioned that Stephen Horsford is Cliven Bundy's congressman. And Stephen Horsford is the very first African-American congressman from this particular district, and he's just literally out of his mind pissed.
They, like myself, are extremely frustrated by the fact that we have these armed militia in our community, the fact that children in Bunkerville, which is a community of only about 1,300 people, cannot walk around the corner from their home to their school without armed militia on the hills of our community. that they can't go to church on Sunday without armed militia being in or around the church because Cliven Bundy is there and the armed militia are there.
That's sick.
And his comments today do not reflect our community. They don't reflect the majority views of Nevadans or the Western way of life and the way that most of us feel. They're racist. His comments were racist. They're infused with bigotry and hatred, and they belong in the dustbin of history. He profiled the African American community, and it's so ironic and hypocritical because he says that people don't understand his way of life, but yet he would profile and make judgments about another community's way of life. He's wrong, he's racist, and we need to have the armed militia leave our communities.
They really, you know, what's being lost in all of this conversation, because Cliven Bundy is so typical of a Republican talking surrogate, okay? He just is. He's typical of Ted Cruz. He's typical of the elected officials. He's typical of the sheriff, Joe Arpaio. He's typical of, you know, this Mr. Mack. We're going to put the women out in the front, and the whole world will see women being killed. I mean, you know, they're so typical of, you know, who gets welcomed onto Fox News, the freaking Duck Dynasty lunatics, the Zimmerman defenders, the Michael Dunn defenders, you know, anybody who's, you know, willing to call Dr. Tiller a baby killer, you know, inciting all this violence to the point where Dr. Tiller ends up being killed in his church, you know, by some armed lunatic who watches this swill. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so amazing. But what's really being lost is the fact that this community that has obviously a lot of decency about it. They have Steve Horsford representing them. He is a Democrat. He is an African American. So obviously Cliven Bundy is a Fox News pick or a right-wing lunatic talk radio pick, just like all the others I just mentioned. But it doesn't reflect the community that's there. And the militia, there's 1,000 of them out there. James Yeager, the one that threatened to kill Obama, the one that, you know, put up those YouTube, just Google him, James Yeager, YouTube. I mean, this guy is so virulent, he is so wild, he is so out of control, he is so hostile, and he's willing to die for his ideas, which are bizarre and ignorant too. But there's a militia out there, and these people that live there in this small community, they can't take their kids to school without seeing guns in the street. They can't take their kids to church. They can't take their kids to the store. Well, welcome to Georgia. Welcome to Florida. Hey, Nevada. Hi, how you doing? Welcome to Florida. It's George Zimmerman territory, Michael Dunn territory. But don't try this while black. Ask Marissa Alexander in Florida. There are different rules, you know. I mean, it's so frightening. That's the situation they find themselves in out there in this peaceful part of the country. So, you know, whenever you see people here in Florida walking around in shorts and skirts and all this, they don't have, you know, body hair. And I always wanted to know, how do they do that? So I asked a couple of girls around here, and they said, well, the secret is we all switched to No Pro, and this is something that apparently everybody knew but me. And then I tried it, and it's unbelievable. Switching to No Pro and throwing away your razors and stopping salon treatments and, you know, chucking laser treatments, it's the best decision you'll make because you get weeks, not days, of long-lasting results. It is literally the best way to remove unwanted hair without any pain, and it doesn't matter what you're trying to do, your legs, your arms, you could do it a bikini line, you could do your face, guys can use it on their chest and your back. You will just love how easy it is to use and the professional results that you get right from your home. So ditch the razors, ditch the salon treatments, get rid of, you know, the laser, which is really expensive, and try the No Pro because you'll be really happy. No Pro comes with a 100% 60-day money-back guarantee, and when you purchase, No will give you a $50 gift card for a dermatologist-recommended award-winning skincare line and a free travel case. All you do is go to talknono.com to get these free gifts. Visit talknono.com, T-A-L-K, nono.com. All right, Claire in Madison, Wisconsin.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Claire.
I am so going to miss you. And I love your BS news also.
Oh, I got an email today. I'm saving all the emails from these last weeks. And so I got an email today from somebody who's asking me about Duffy, who does all of our news bits. And I just want to let you know, Duffy works for, he's the creative director for WGN in Chicago. And the only reason why he does this for me is because he and I have been really close friends for about 20 years now. So Duffy will be fine, is what I'm saying. People are concerned about him.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no,
good.
he's fine.
He's awesome.
He's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. He is.
Randy, it's really fun for all of us to laugh at Cliven Bundy and jerks like Ted Nugent, but they are really dangerous.
Yeah, they're an epidemic, is what they are. And they're like an antibiotic-resistant virus that is invading the body politic. And you get sick once, and you're sick for 2 days. You get sick again, you're sick for 5 days. Pretty soon, the body just gives up. And frankly, this is why they keep picking these people. The more racist, the more lunatic, the more assault weapony, the more hate-filled. And you know what? It really did start with Sarah Palin. It really did. She's like the head of the pimple, She is. She started it by saying he pals around with terrorists. That's when the lid came off. The Republican Party stayed silent for the longest. McCain didn't say anything until the woman remember that woman that forgot she had a back of her head? She forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Remember her? She forgot to brush her hair in the back because she was laying down in the lazy boy, and she went to the thing and didn't bother to brush her hair. And that was the first time anybody ever told anybody to shut up about, he's not a Muslim. And this went on and 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 on. You got Joe the plumber out there. He did the same damn crap, You've got all these elected officials now, that do it. Now you've got Greg Abbott. Now you've got Ted Cruz. Now you've got Paul Ryan. Now you've got what's his face? Rand Paul. You've got Joe Walsh, the former Congress member. They gave him a radio show. This is pretty much the epitome of embarrassment for me. But they gave him a radio show, and he's on there. This is the deadbeat dad, Joe Walsh, who never paid his child support. I mean, all these people, and they rally around the Zimmermans, and they rally around the Dunns, and they rally around the Cliven Bundys, and they're doing it for a reason.
Well, this is what I would like to know, Randy. Statistically, the Mormon culture has a far higher rate of using things like social welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, etc.
Is that right?
No. How many kids does he have? 15?
13.
13 and 50 grandchildren. And how many wives?
Oh, I don't know.
I'd love to know how many food stamp programs are involved with this and other social programs that we are all paying for, in addition to the land he's using up.
Well, Cliven Bundy is not a poor man, so I don't think that he qualifies for any assistance. The subsidy that he gets is a federal government subsidy that lowers the cost per head of cattle, the grazing fees, from $12, which is what the state charges, but because it's federal land, he only has to pay $1 and change per head. So he's already subsidized in that way, and he still won't pay the low fee, which is really obnoxious and bizarre. And that he's calling other people deadbeats while he's the deadbeat is so typical of who they are. It goes right alongside the Democrats are the racists. We're not the racists. They're always projecting what they do onto us. But I wouldn't go for the food stamp, argument here, because there's no evidence that he gets anything.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Teresa in Toronto.
Hi, Randy. This is first-time caller.
Oh, hi.
Listener.
Hello.
I'm really nervous, so forgive me. I want to comment about Cliven Bundy. Since he likens receiving government subsidies to being shackled like a slave, perhaps he should use that as a motivation to pay his fees.
Right. It's total hypocrisy. Everybody gets it.
And perhaps
and you know now,
rate, not the government subsidized rate, the market rate.
Well, the state rate. Well, listen, he keeps saying he recognizes the state, but not the federal government. The state rate is $12. The federal government subsidized rate, which is what he's being charged with not paying, is $1. So it's already subsidized.
I mean, it's just another example, you know, upon millions of examples of their hypocrisy on
exactly
everything.
But you know, their hypocrisy has gone beyond hypocrisy now it's actually into territory that's dividing the country. I mean, seriously, dividing the country to the point where people are arming themselves and listen, they're pointing their weapons at federal officers in full view of cameras. And no one got arrested? I just can't even imagine. Like, what would happen if anybody, besides for Cliven Bundy, anybody, pointed a weapon at a federal officer? And someone took a picture of it, and there were others there doing the same thing, and they weren't Cliven Bundy. Whether or not, I mean, is there a question in anybody's head whether or not they would have been pepper sprayed or arrested? And this all started because one of the BLM guys had his dog kicked. This is what started this whole thing. One of the Bureau of Land Management, the reason why they went in there armed, is because, first of all, the Bureau of Land Management is armed. The whole freaking country is armed. So they went in there armed and prepared because ahead of this cattle roundup, which is why they went physically, they did not go to collect a bill. This is all bullcrap. Okay? They went to round up the cattle to get them off the land. And the reason is because the conservation, there's a biological conservation group that sued to get Cliven Bundy off the land. And they won. So the court judged that they had to be able to enforce the judgment. And the judgment was for the conservation people, right? So they had to do something because the court had ordered it. The court had also ordered Cliven Bundy to pay these back grazing fees. Well, when they went there to get the cattle as part of a court order, Cliven Bundy, ahead of that, told newspapers out there that him and his wife were armed and they were ready to do whatever they had to do in order to stop the cattle roundup. That's how it started. All these militia people were alerted. Tell me how. You're telling me 67-year-old Cliven Bundy knew how to do this on Facebook? Oh, please. Somebody acted on his behalf and, got these oath keepers and these militia guys and the James Yeagers of the world with his tactical response company. And all these people were alerted, and they all went running out there in violation of federal law. You cannot bring guns over state lines for the purpose of taking on federal officers in another state. Okay, can't do it. So they're all lawbreakers. Every last one of them is a lawbreaker. All right, so they're all out there. BLM is obviously, there's YouTubes of it. You can go look at it. They're standing there and they're talking to some of these kooky militia guys. And Cliven Bundy's son, one of them, they're out there with their dogs to help them do the roundup, right? And one of Cliven Bundy's sons kicks one of the service dogs. And the BLM guy tasers him for kicking his dog, which is bizarro world in anybody's. I mean, just the fact that you've got German Shepherds and non-lethal weapons, and you're wearing tactical vests, and everybody's armed now. Everybody's armed. That situation in and of itself is so grotesque. I can't even tell you. The sheriffs in the Wild West used to make you check your guns before you entered their town. That was a good rule. I like that rule. But not anymore. And so these things escalate now. They escalate, right? And then the BLM backs off because they don't want to kill anybody. And the sheriff, the former sheriff, he says, I'll put the women in the front. The whole thing is out of whack. Everybody's wrong in this. You understand that? Everybody's wrong. There's no right anymore because the police are militarized, the citizenry is militarized, and the rhetoric is off the hook. But the innocent people in all this are the people who actually live there, peaceful, the other ranchers.
The conservative media and the Republican elected officials who spoke out calling Cliven Bundy a hero when in fact his comments are anything but. And we want the armed militia to know that we want you to leave. That's what the residents told me today. The neighbors of Cliven Bundy told me that they want their community back, that they want it to be back to normal, and that this doesn't reflect our community. And these people are not here to solve local land use problems. They have come with an agenda, and that agenda doesn't belong in Mesquite, in Bunkerville, in Moapa, or any place in Nevada.
That's the congressman that represents Cliven Bundy and the rest of that town, and they want the damn militia to leave. The BLM left, but the militia never did. And the other ranchers are furious.
Some of the ranchers that I met with today and that I've met with previously feel like he is breaking the law, that he's getting special treatment, because we have a lot of responsible ranchers who have paid their grazing fees, who have cooperated to move their cattle to other areas and were compensated fairly for doing so. But because Cliven Bundy doesn't want to follow the law, he is trying to hold himself out as some type of victim here, and it's not reflective of other responsible ranchers who have done the right thing, who have paid their fees, and who recognize the rule of law.
Seriously, this is the problem here, that the BLM, who did go in, over-militarized, if you ask me. They went in, looking like SWAT teams, but they left, and now all that's there are armed militia. And the people who live there are like, we can't go anywhere. We can't go take our kids to school. We can't go to church. We can't go anywhere without having to deal with these nutbags who are armed to the teeth. It's really sick, and it's really twisted, and it's just a glimpse into, what the Republican world in their dreams would look like. This is really what they envision for you, and that's why, for years, they've been telling you to buy as many guns as you can, telling you that, there's ammunition shortages because Obama's administration is buying up all the ammunition. All this was to get you to hoard stuff. They even have commercials I hear on their radio shows that say, the one most important item you should hoard. Go to my website and I'll tell you the one most important item you should hoard. I mean, it's really sick. Buy fish farms, plant gardens, get food insurance, arm yourself, build a bunker, survivalist gear. This is their wet dream. They want to turn America into a nation under siege by sovereign citizens. And I can't figure out what that is, because to me it just looks like lawbreakers. It looks like people who hate the Constitution. It looks to me like people who hate America. It looks to me like people who don't understand that if they don't like something, they can, lobby Congress, they can give money, they can vote, or they can put together, some sort of political action committee. I mean, I don't understand why they think that they're right because they're hoarding ammunition, they have fish farms and food insurance. I don't know what that has to do with the Constitution or any of the ways that we traditionally address our grievances. I have no idea. But this is their wet dream. This is what, in their minds, in their hopes, in their dreams, in their fantasy world, this is what America looks like. Just a lawless, well, it looks like Somalia, right? Somalia. No government. Everybody's armed. Rocket-propelled grenade launch. The local police have Bradley tanks. I mean, the whole thing is off the hook. It's so messed up. And the people to blame for it are clear. It's clear who eggs it on, who incites it, who sells the gear, who makes money off of it, who's trading in this fantasy, this tyranny that's, going to come because Obama. I mean, it's clear who's doing this to your country. Clear. And because we're law-abiding people, we have to wait till November. But you better show up. 10 till.
I don't recognize the United States government as even existing.
Okay? You can't pay a government if it doesn't exist, especially not with the money that it issued.
by bravely standing against the forces of paying your bills. Bundy became a hero to conservatives like Sean Hannity, who turned Bundy's 10-gallon hat all the way up to 11. Jim?
My next guest, Cliven Bundy, is the Nevada rancher waging a battle against the federal government. Back with us tonight, Cliven Bundy. Back with us is the rancher himself, Cliven Bundy. And back with us tonight to respond in a Hannity exclusive is rancher Cliven Bundy. You know, Cliven, I've gotten to know you now over this, as this controversy is unfolding. You and your family seem like really nice people.
Man, Hannity ate up that story so hard, Bundy should have charged him grazing fees. And... Thanks to Sean's sympathetic coverage, armed patriots flocked to Bundy's ranch to defend his rights.
We were actually strategizing to put all the women up at the front. If they're going to start shooting, it's going to be women that are going to be televised all across the world getting shot by these rogue federal officers.
Now, that's not as monstrous as it sounds. I'm sure that we're going to protect the women with a line of children.
Thanks. So congratulations, Senator Jean Heller, who called Bundy a patriot, and Governor Rick Perry, who rose to Bundy's defense, and Senator Ted Cruz, who rose to Bundy's defense, Sean Hannity, that rose to Bundy's defense, to the Duck Dynasty crowd, to the Phil Robertsons, after he was suspended for saying that gay people and African Americans, were singing and happy in in sharecropper America. Yeah, congratulations to Rand Paul and to all the people that wear racist T-shirts and tell racist jokes and go to tea parties with posters of the president with a bone through his nose and ghostwriters, and be very proud of yourselves. You're tearing this country apart.